Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Claire always believed she was the star of every room. Daniel had known it from their very first date. Her confidence, her sparkle, the way she drew attention like light draws moths. And for a while, he'd loved that about her. He'd loved everything about her. He remembered those early mornings in their small Denver townhouse, her curling iron buzzing while he brewed coffee, the way she'd spin around in her silk robe, asking, "Do I look powerful enough to make men nervous?" He'd laugh, kiss her forehead, and reply, "You always do." But somewhere along the years, the sparkle turned into distance. It wasn't one big explosion. It was small, slow cracks. Missed dinners, forgotten anniversaries, the way she'd scroll through her phone during conversations. Then came the meetings, the endless networking dinners, the work trips that always stretched one day longer than she said they would. Daniel wasn't naive. He noticed. He just didn't want to believe. Until one evening, when her phone lit up on the counter while she showered. The screen showed a preview. "Eric W., I still smell you on my shirt. Next time, don't leave so early." Daniel's heart didn't race. It sank, like a stone into deep, cold water. He didn't touch the phone, didn't take screenshots, didn't even mention it. He just stared at it for a long time, realizing the woman who once promised forever had already left, just not physically yet. That night, when she came out wrapped in a towel, humming, pretending everything was fine, he just said softly, "You forgot to silence your phone." Her face froze for half a second. Then she smiled, the kind of brittle, fake smile people wear when they know they've been caught. "Daniel," she said, "you're reading too much into things again." He nodded, pretending to believe her. But something inside him quietly broke and rebuilt itself colder. In the weeks that followed, he stopped asking where she went. He stopped waiting for her. He simply detached, like a ghost living among the living. And when she finally brought up divorce, it wasn't a fight. It was a business transaction. "I think we both know this isn't working," she said one evening over takeout, as if she were discussing real estate instead of love. "Let's do this peacefully. We can still be friends, right?" He met her gaze and smiled faintly. "Of course, Claire. Friends." She looked relieved, almost smug. After that, she moved into a downtown apartment, the kind with glass walls and perfect lighting for her Instagram posts. She told everyone how mature their breakup was, how Daniel was such a good guy, and how they were still close. She called him whenever her car broke down, or when she needed help setting up furniture, or when her emotions got heavy after one of Eric's business meetings. And Daniel, calm, polite, unreadable, helped. At first. Then, slowly, he started saying no. When she texted, "Can you come fix my sink?" "It's leaking," he replied. "Ask Eric. I'm sure he's good with pipes." When she called at midnight crying, he texted back, "Friends don't fix ex-wives' choices." And just like that, the dynamic shifted. Claire started realizing friendship with Daniel came with boundaries and silence. Meanwhile, Daniel's own life took a turn she never saw coming. At a friend's gallery opening, he ran into Julia Blake, Claire's best friend since college. Julia was everything Claire used to be before ambition turned her heart into marble. Warm, funny, grounded. They talked, first awkwardly, then naturally. She knew about the divorce. Claire had told her everything, with a few twists to make herself the victim. But as Julia spoke with Daniel that night, she realized how different the truth sounded coming from his calm voice. By the end of the evening, Julia laughed for the first time in months. "You're not the man she described," she said. Daniel's smirk was soft, dangerous. Maybe she never knew me at all. They exchanged numbers. And for the first time since his marriage ended, Daniel felt something resembling peace, or maybe curiosity. As weeks passed, coffee turned into dinners, and dinners turned into long drives through the city. Julia was cautious at first, aware of the unspoken line she was crossing. But every time she saw Daniel's quiet composure, she couldn't help but think he didn't deserve what Claire did to him. And Daniel? He wasn't just falling. He was planning. Because he knew one day, Claire would find out. And when she did, the woman who once left him cold and small would finally understand what it felt like to be replaced by someone she'd never expect. 2 months after the divorce, Daniel's life had taken on a steady rhythm. Morning runs before sunrise, drafting blueprints late into the night, dinners that didn't involve tension or silence. His apartment was small but spotless, every inch reflecting quiet control. He didn't think about Claire much anymore. At least, that's what he told himself. Then one evening, while reviewing a client's renovation plan, a text flashed on his phone. Claire, hey, can you help me jump my car? It died again. He stared at the message for a long moment. A year ago, he would have been out the door in seconds. Now, he simply placed the phone face down and went back to work. Minutes later, another text appeared. Claire, I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. He smirked faintly and typed, call Eric. I'm sure he's nearby. There was no reply. It wasn't that Daniel enjoyed being cold. He just finally understood something vital. She'd left him emotionally long before she packed her things. He'd been her safety net, her backup plan, her steady foundation when her world shook. And now, that foundation had cracked on purpose. A week later, fate threw them into the same orbit again. Daniel walked into a downtown restaurant to meet a client and froze for a split second. Claire sat 2 tables away, laughing with Eric. Her laughter was sharp, forced, like she was trying too hard to prove she was happy. She looked thinner, her smile brittle. Their eyes met briefly. Hers widened, shocked to see him looking so composed, dressed sharply, exuding calm confidence she hadn't noticed before. He gave her a polite nod, as if she were a stranger, then turned back to his client. That small gesture, so casual, so dismissive, burned her more than anger ever could. After that night, she began calling more often, always with excuses. Do you still have a number for that plumber? Can you help me with the mortgage paperwork? I messed something up. I just miss talking to you sometimes. Daniel kept his responses short, professional. You should contact maintenance. Ask your realtor. Take care, Claire. Every cold reply chipped away at her pride. Meanwhile, Julia had quietly become part of Daniel's world. She dropped by his office with coffee, tease him about his obsession with minimalism, or sit beside him on his balcony, listening as he spoke about rebuilding his life. There was something soothing about her presence. No games, no ego, just warmth. She wasn't trying to fix him. She simply saw him. One night, after a long charity event, Daniel walked at her car. Rain misted the air, soft and steady. Julia hesitated before opening the door. Claire still doesn't know. Does she? She asked quietly. Daniel's voice was calm. Not yet. Do you want her to? He looked at her then. Really looked. I don't need her to know. I just need to live without her shadow. But Julia saw it in his eyes. He wasn't done. Not completely. There was something unspoken behind that calm, something patient and sharp. The truth came a few weeks later, unexpectedly. Claire showed up at his office unannounced one Friday morning, wearing designer sunglasses and a forced smile. Daniel, she began, I was in the area and thought I'd say hi. You know, since we're friends. His assistant glanced at him nervously. Daniel waved her off. It's fine, Natalie. Give us a minute. When the door shut, Claire took a deep breath, scanning the clean, bright office. You've done well for yourself, she said. I'm proud of you. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. What is it you really came for, Claire? She faltered for a second. I just wanted to see how you were. Things haven't been easy lately. Eric and I, well, it didn't work out. He moved to Chicago. He waited. Silence stretched. She finally added, You know, I miss how easy things were with us. Maybe we could. He interrupted softly. Claire, do you remember your friend Julia? She blinked. Of course. What? Daniel stood, walked to the window, and said in a tone so gentle it almost sounded kind, Because I'm taking her to dinner tonight. We've been seeing each other for a while now. The color drained from her face. For a moment, she couldn't speak. You're joking. He turned, eyes calm, almost pitying. No, you said we could still be friends, remember? I just didn't realize that included dating the people who actually cared about me. She swallowed hard, voice trembling. You did this to hurt me. He shook his head. No, Claire. You did this to yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. Her voice broke. You can't, Daniel. She was my best friend. He corrected softly. And you were my wife. For the first time since their split, she had no defense. No clever line. Just silence. And the faint echo of the truth she tried to outrun. As she left his office, shoulders stiff, Daniel exhaled slowly. It wasn't triumph he felt, it was release. A quiet, satisfying peace that came from finally closing a chapter without burning the whole book. That night, when Julia arrived for dinner, Daniel held the door open for her. She smiled, radiant in the soft evening light. "Rough day?" she asked gently. He chuckled under his breath. "Let's just say, closure finally looks good on me." She laughed softly and slipped her hand into his. And somewhere across town, Claire sat alone in her high-rise apartment, staring at her reflection, realizing that for the first time in years, no one was coming to save her. The days that followed were eerily quiet for Daniel, the kind of calm that comes not from peace, but from the final echo after a storm. He hadn't expected Claire to show up again, but she did. It was a Sunday morning when he heard the knock. He opened the door to find her standing there, no makeup, eyes red, clutching a small box. "I just found some of your things," she said softly. "I thought you want them back." He glanced inside. It was nothing important. Old keys, a worn leather watch strap, a photo of them from years ago, smiling on a beach that no longer meant anything. "You could have thrown these away," he said quietly. "I couldn't," she whispered. Her gaze flicked past him, into his apartment. "You live differently now." He smiled faintly. "Simpler, maybe. Lighter." She shifted on her feet. "You and Julia, are you serious?" Daniel hesitated, watching her expression. "Yes, I am." Claire's throat tightened. "She was supposed to be my friend, Daniel." "She was," he corrected gently. "But friendship doesn't excuse silence when someone's destroying a good man." That hit her harder than she expected. Tears welled, but pride made her blink them back. "You make it sound like I'm the villain." He met her eyes steadily. "You made yourself one, Claire. I just stopped pretending otherwise." She left soon after, but her presence lingered in the air, a ghost he'd finally stopped fearing. For the next few weeks, life moved on. Daniel's career flourished. New projects, new clients, new confidence. Julia became his quiet constant. She brought warmth to his edges, laughter back into his mornings. She'd show up at his office with sandwiches, tease him for his serious face, and leave sticky notes on his desk that read, "Don't forget to breathe." One night, as they sat watching the city skyline from his balcony, she turned to him. "Do you ever think about her?" He didn't lie. "Sometimes. Not because I miss her, just because she taught me who not to be." Julia nodded slowly. "I get that. She hurt you deeply, but you never turned bitter." He smiled faintly. "Revenge doesn't always need fire. Sometimes silence burns better." Julia leaned her head on his shoulder. "That's what I like about you. You never need to prove anything. You just let people show themselves." He looked out over the lights of Denver, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, contentment. But Claire's world, meanwhile, was beginning to crumble. After Eric moved away, she found herself isolated in the same high-rise she once flaunted. Her colleagues had distanced themselves, whispers about unprofessional relationships spreading through the office. Her career, the one thing she'd thought would never fail her, was quietly slipping from her hands. The final blow came one Thursday morning when she walked into work to find her position reassigned. Her manager, someone she'd once mentored, barely met her eyes. "Corporate restructuring," he mumbled. "Nothing personal." But Claire knew better. It was karma. That evening, she drove past the little cafe she and Daniel once loved, thinking maybe, just maybe, she'd see him. And she did. Through the window, she saw Daniel and Julia, laughing over coffee, completely absorbed in each other. There was no tension, no forced smiles, just genuine happiness. For the first time, Claire realized the difference between being admired and being loved. Admiration had fueled her for years. Likes, compliments, attention. But love, that required depth, patience, kindness. Things she had once had in Daniel, and thrown away for fleeting excitement. Her eyes stung. She parked across the street, watching them for a moment before driving off, heart pounding, shame heavy in her chest. That night, she called him again. He didn't answer. Then she texted, "I'm sorry for everything. I know it's too late. I just wanted you to know." Daniel saw it the next morning, read it once, then deleted it. No reply. Not out of cruelty, but because forgiveness didn't need acknowledgement. It was his alone. Weeks later, he and Julia attended an art gala for one of his new design clients. The place was buzzing with laughter, champagne, and soft music. As they mingled, Daniel felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see Claire, dressed immaculately, smile rehearsed but trembling. "Daniel," she greeted. "You look happy." "I am," he replied simply. Julia excused herself politely to speak with someone nearby, giving them space. Claire exhaled, lowering her voice. "You really moved on, didn't you?" He studied her face. "I didn't move on, Claire. I moved forward." "Big difference." Her lip quivered, but she forced another smile. "I'm glad you're doing well." "Me too," he said gently, before walking away. She stood there, frozen, watching him join Julia again, hands slipping naturally into hers as they shared an easy laugh. For the rest of the evening, Claire wandered through the glittering room feeling invisible, realizing that somewhere between her ambition and betrayal, she'd lost not just Daniel, but the version of herself who once deserved him. Later that night, Daniel and Julia drove home in quiet contentment. As they pulled up to his apartment, Julia looked over and smiled. "You okay?" He nodded. "Yeah, for the first time in years, I actually am." He took her hand, kissed her palm gently, and whispered, "Some endings are gifts in disguise." She leaned into him, the city lights washing over their faces. Inside, the air felt light again. No ghosts, no resentment. Just two people who had chosen honesty over illusion, and found peace in the process. And somewhere far across town, Claire sat by her window, staring at her reflection, realizing the man she once thought she could control had quietly become the one thing she could never have again. A man free from her shadow. Months passed. Denver's early winter had painted the city silver, and Daniel's life had settled into something he never thought he'd have again. Peace that didn't feel borrowed. His mornings were slower now. Coffee, sunlight, the quiet hum of Julia's laughter echoing down the hallway as she got ready for work. One Saturday afternoon, they were at a small local market, picking up fresh bread and candles, when Julia stopped to admire a display of handmade journals. Daniel watched her for a moment, the way her eyes softened when she smiled, the easy warmth in her tone as she spoke to the vendor. This was what love looked like, he thought. Not grand gestures or dramatic apologies, but comfort, steadiness, and truth. As they walked out together, Julia squeezed his hand. "You seem lighter lately," she said. "I finally stopped carrying someone else's story," he replied. "Now I'm writing mine." She smiled, resting her head briefly on his shoulder. "Then I'm glad I get to be part of it." That evening, while Daniel prepared dinner, a familiar name flashed on his phone. Claire Bennett. He paused. Julia glanced up from the dining table. "You can answer if you want." He shook his head. "No need." But curiosity made him open the message anyway. "I've been thinking a lot. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." Daniel stared at the screen for a long moment, then set the phone down. The words didn't sting. They didn't even move him. They were just empty echoes from a chapter he'd already closed. Julia noticed his expression and asked softly, "You okay?" He nodded. "Yeah, I think she's finally realizing what she lost." Julia met his eyes. "And you?" He smiled. "I realized what I gained." They finished dinner together, laughter replacing what used to be silence. Meanwhile, across the city, Claire sat alone at her dining table. The apartment she'd once bragged about now felt like a glass box, bright, cold, and hollow. She'd been offered a position in another city, but she hadn't accepted. Not because of work, but because she was haunted by memories of a man she'd underestimated. She'd told herself he was boring, too grounded, too predictable. But now she understood. Predictable men don't leave quietly unless they're planning to never look back. In her loneliness, she replayed their last conversation in her mind. "You made yourself the villain." At the time, she thought he was cruel. Now, she knew he was honest. A year later, Daniel stood in front of a modern townhouse he and Julia had just purchased together. The late afternoon sun bathed the front porch in gold as movers carried boxes inside. Julia turned to him, laughing softly. "Can you believe this is ours?" He smiled, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "Feels like a fresh start." As they walked in, the smell of fresh paint filled the air, a new beginning layered over the past. On the wall by the entryway hung a small framed quote Julia had chosen. Sometimes the apology comes too late, and the peace comes right on time. Daniel looked at it, exhaled, and said quietly, "That's the truth." Julia smiled. "Then let's make sure this place stays filled with truth." He kissed her forehead. "Deal." They stood there, holding each other as the light faded. Two people who had learned that love, when real, doesn't need revenge to win. It only needs courage to let go. And somewhere far away, Claire scrolled through social media, stopping on a photo. Daniel and Julia, smiling in front of their new home, captioned simply, "New beginnings, same hearts." For the first time, Claire didn't feel anger or jealousy, just the quiet ache of understanding. She whispered to herself, "I had my chance, and I lost it." Outside, the wind rattled her windows, cold but cleansing. While across town, Daniel and Julia sat by their fireplace, their laughter soft, the flames warm. Proof that sometimes, the best revenge is simply healing better than they ever expected you to.